as people filter in, they'll hopefully catch most of the presentation. I'm Chris Aragao. I am one of the leads with the Veterans Advocacy Tableau user group. We have a lot to go over today. So thank you for joining first and foremost. And hopefully you get some value out of this presentation. So for our agenda for today, we're looking at, I'll do a little bit of introductions. We'll go through our vet to viz story segment. I'll be kind of leading that off. Leading that off, and then if you want to share your story, then you can at that point. We'll go over our Viz for Vets website that Ethan Lang put together. It's really, I just think it's well put together, and we'll kind of go over that in detail. I'll be going over my presentation after that for data prep, and basically going over like options that you might have for low code data prep at your disposal, depending on the budget that you may have at your office. We'll be going over Alteryx SparkEd and options for folks to take advantage of some of the free licenses that Alteryx provides as part of their SparkEd program. After that, we'll introduce our Veterans Day Challenge. We kind of put together some data sets, put it on GitHub, and this for folks to participate and try to help tell the veteran story. And then after that, closing remarks and any discussion and networking that you want to have at the end. So our leads, I'll introduce myself first, and if any of the other leads want to jump on, feel free. I'm Chris Aragao. I work for the EPA. I'm in data analytics, doing a lot of SQL work there. And I guess I'll tell my vet to viz story now, and we'll kind of lead into the next segment. But I was in the Marine, I was in the Marine Corps from 2001 to 2005, and I think since then worked at the VA for a long time. Kind of wore many hats there, but it wasn't until I started really doing stuff in Tableau that I really started to see that I really liked the data analytics space. So kind of leveled up those skills going forward. And that's what kind of brought me here. And it was interesting because I started working with Tim in 2008 when I first got my first real job at the federal government after the military. And it was just interesting that he started like 5-6 months before me in Boston, and then here we find ourselves not even working for the same agency, but still kind of doing this stuff in the same area. So if any of the leads want to jump on and kind of introduce yourself, feel free.
Yeah, I'll go next. I'm Tim. Chris mentioned that we worked together at the VA for a while, but then I left the VA and went to the FAA. My military experience is I was in the Air Force for 4 years active, 6 years in the Guard, so now I work for the FAA. I'm a strategic planner and performance measures lead. I also do what was I gonna say? Yeah, I do. I work with Tableau a lot in my job. I'm in the Office of Commercial Space Transportation, which is really interesting. It's about rockets, commercial launches like SpaceX, Blue Origin, ULA, things like that. So it's a really unique field within the FAA, which I really like. Chris actually invited me to start this tug. I think it was end of 2018 when we kicked off in 2019, and then kind of slowed down, but now it's really picked up. So that's how we're doing this. But I appreciate everyone being here. I put my LinkedIn in the chat, so feel free to connect. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'll go next, guys. Hey, Abe Diaz here. Sorry, I'm off camera, kind of doing some stuff, unfortunately, during this time. Marine Corps veteran, just like Chris. I've been learning data analytics for about 2 years. Just recently started my new role as a data analyst 1 at New View Analytics, which is kind of like a boutique consulting firm. And yeah, that's who I am. Please connect with me on LinkedIn if we haven't already. Always down to help anyone in need when it comes to data.
Maybe Ethan's being shy.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know it was my turn. Apologize. Hey everybody, I'm Ethan Lang, the Associate Director of Analytics Engineering at Playfair Data, also co-lead of this amazing group here. So I came on board in, I think 2020, I reached out to Tim to see if there's anything I could do to help out with the tug. And, we started talking, and eventually, I came on board as a co-lead, and it's been like magic ever since. I've seen the tug really grow, and we got a lot to share with you guys today, which I'm really excited about. We're continually improving our process and growing and helping out more veterans. So looking forward to sharing all that progress with you folks today as well.
And Lou's not here right now, so let's move on.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So with that, we kind of told you a little bit about ourselves. So we have a segment every meeting where we talk and we invite anyone on the call to tell either what got you into the analytics space, if you're already in it, or what brought you here, right? What if you're not currently in the analytics space working in that area, what intrigued you about this group? So if anybody wants to come off mute, you'll feel free to tell your Vet to Viz story.
You also don't need to be a veteran to share your story.
Right.
I'll start. I'm Ryan Kelleher. I saw this group on LinkedIn, and I'm a transitioning service member, Navy operations specialist. And I tell people that don't really know what an OS is, but we are sort of pseudo data analysts in a lot of ways. And a lot of the upskilling that I've been doing through the transition in my education has been pulling me into the data space. So I'm really here just to learn and understand where people are coming from. So maybe I can just go into a direction I might not already be going, or just learn from the experience that everybody is having, because I have no idea what exactly I want to do, but I know that I do have skills that are valued within the data space. And I just really want to learn how I can be effective and then bring value to this team if that relationship works out. So thank you for allowing me to be in this space.
Thank you.
Awesome. Ryan, do you have Tableau? Do you have any experience with Tableau at all?
I do. In my graduate program in information systems at HPU. It was one of their courses. I don't have certification, but very familiar, and I know how to use it. Basically,
great.
That's it.
Awesome.
Good stuff. Yeah, I think Ryan, with a lot of the stories I've heard, over time, it's like a lot of people that get into the analytics field tend to like fall into it a little bit. It's not necessarily what they got their bachelor's in. Like, I mean, I have a bachelor's in philosophy. So it's like, from Plato's cave to Tableau, so I think, you're definitely in good company.
Thanks, I appreciate it. And I really think everyone is a data analyst. And then once you start throwing in the math and all the craziness, it gets a little more involved. But yeah, thank you.
Yep. We got a couple minutes if anybody else wants to share. All right. Do you want to call it, Tim? Yeah. All right. I will say one thing, at least for me, it was a little bit personal too. A lot of, I mean, I think when I first got Tableau, I was working in the disability rating activity site, and that was during, we had, I worked on the Navy and Marine Corps team. So basically we were processing medical separations. This is about 2011 timeframe. And, you know, at that time frame, we had sailors and Marines coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. And it was a paper, you know, we weren't at the VA, we weren't, you know, online yet with our claims processing system. So I think like just trying to pick up these skills definitely helped in that time frame. And that's kind of where I saw a lot of value. So just being able to kind of play with Tableau a little bit, you know, I think I might have gotten it a little bit later, probably like around 2013 timeframe, 2014 timeframe. But you know, just being able to massage data and figure out what the right next claim was and make sure that I'm taking care of those Marines and sailors was, you know, I think data prep and analysis and visualization definitely helped at that time frame, and that's where I got a lot of value out of it. All right, so we're going to get to you know, the prep with your budget, I'm calling it. Really, I'm going to kind of switch gears and go to another presentation. But I guess the thesis, as you would say, of this presentation is, you know, depending on where you work, or you know, where you're doing your, you know, graduate program, undergrad, whatever, you might get different ability or licenses or what have you, especially where you work. So like personally, like I've had licenses for Tableau Prep, I've had all licenses for Alteryx at different positions. So you know, I've had experience with all three of these things: Excel, Tableau Prep, and Alteryx. And depending on where you may be situated, and the funding and the IT support that you might have, one of these three things may make sense. So I'm just going to kind of go over some use cases and some things I've done over time and things I've learned, and hopefully it adds value to kind of getting your foot in the water of data prep, or if you're already doing a lot of data prep, like kind of seeing maybe another application that you might not be using. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to end this show and switch gears. So let me bring the other show up. Okay, here we go. All right, prep with your budget. So I think a lot of the issues I've seen over the years, especially with visualizations, is people know what they want to see, but trying to get the like the data model in the right shape to be able to do that. Some people are really visual and can create a fantastic visual based on clean data, but a lot of times, especially where where I've worked over the years, the data doesn't come through so clean, depending on how much data systems compliance there is in the system itself, the way the system is organized, the way the user experience was, any attention paid to that in terms of, you know, like, is it really busy, the screen? Is it hard to put in information into the screen? So it kind of complicates things to be able to report on things and to make dashboards when you have those problems surface, right? So, you know, I don't consider myself a data engineer, but data engineering is making sure that you're getting the data that's coming from whatever system or whatever flat file or wherever it's coming from, it's getting it into the right shape so that you can story tell, right? With Tableau, so that you can create an impactful dashboard. Otherwise, it's the old garbage in, garbage out. If the data model is inconsistent, or if it has gaps that it shouldn't have, or there was a bad join somewhere, for you SQL folks, then your dashboard won't tell the right story, or it's be missing key information to be able to do that. So that's kind of where data engineering becomes really important. Data prep. So the good news is that data prep can be low code. So Tableau prep is a great option. If you have a creator, I think it's with a creator license, you get Tableau prep, or it could be way more complex. So your Python and R folks, you can do a lot of data prep with any of those languages and packages in those languages. So you can really start with low code. You don't necessarily have to go straight to Python and R if you don't have a coding background. So you can also, there's options in terms of whether you have it installed on your desktop or whether you want to completely do it from the cloud and connect and mash up data that way. So you have all these options, but a lot of times, depending on what your budget is at your office or your personal budget, or whether you have licenses available to you for free, it can be a little bit challenging to kind of make sense of like, okay, what should I use if I want to kind of take the first step? So like I said, low code, why would you start with low code? It can seem daunting, when I first started to really I did a lot of work in Visual Basic for applications in Excel. Years and years of doing that. But kind of taking that first step for me, I felt a sense of I don't know how to phrase it right, but I guess I would say I was intimidated by some of the things I would put out, and I was like, how did anybody do that, right? I definitely felt a sense of intimidation when I saw things that other my friends were doing with that. So I think getting over that hump and just putting in not trying to learn everything in one day and just putting in day by day a little bit of work, that's really helped me. But you have to start somewhere. So one thing that I've definitely was a plus over the years was starting with low code and learning what the data needs to look like before you start writing code, right? So I think a lot of times with these products, you can kind of start to see best practices of data prep in general, and then start applying it into code later on. And I think, all these options, this one down here is KNIME. It's like a free version that's put out where you can get a desktop license. I'll try to open it up if we have time for it. But it's pretty cool too. I'm going to be focusing more on Excel, Tableau prep, and Alteryx. But the one thing that I kind of say at work a lot, it's this last quote there. It's attributed to Hemingway, but I'm not even no one's really sure if he really truly said it. But even if you can code, you can write drunk and edit sober, meaning a lot of times, especially if I have to write a complicated SQL statement, I don't really know what it's going to look like in the end, and I don't really know the pathway to get there. So sometimes I'll just take one of these things and kind of play around and be like, well, do I want to do this? No. Do I want to do that? And it's just very simple to kind of add a step, delete a step, add a step, delete a step, and just kind of like iterate and see like, okay, this is what it needs to look like. Okay, what did I do? And then start writing SQL to that. So the other thing too is like, I'll get to it in a minute, but for the folks that are, your hardcore SQL, you can write CTs like it's nobody's business, window functions all day. And for your Python and R folks, with a lot of these options, there's really no cliff. So you can really, inject some stuff there.
Chris, question.
Sure.
Curious, will you be going over like what to look for, like kind of key things you're looking for when you're prepping data? Like just like I know
Yeah.
I specific, but like just like key data.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah. I'll definitely hit some of that stuff. Yeah. Yep. All right. So I kind of mentioned some of this stuff, so I won't spend too much time on the slide. I kind of want to get to the presentation, I should say. So like I said, based on where you might be, where you might find a job or have a job, you may have limited options in terms of what you can do, right? You may have budget, but IT could limit your security. So they could say, oh yeah, we'll give you Alteryx, but no, you can't create a view on the data. Like we won't give you a SQL server or, any sort of server presence, and you can't create a view. So I've been in those situations before, and it can get pretty frustrating. So you have to kind of solution engineer around those things. So today, I'm doing like a small, medium, large budget type situation and IT support. So you have options, right? So 3 options are, option 1 is, and I've actually heard this said to me. So this is not something that's just esoteric. Like somebody actually said this first one to me, just use Excel. So, all right. So you don't need a license, just use Excel. That'll be option 1. Option 2 is we got you Tableau creator license. So unless I'm misunderstanding, I think prep comes with creator. So there's that. And then, hey, we got all the budget in the world. Not only do we have Tableau at work, but we got you Alteryx too. And we have an Alteryx server. Okay. So we're going to go over all 3 options and kind of, I'm not going to hit all the, there's not enough time to that. I'm not going to hit all the features of all these things, but I will definitely pick and choose some things that I like about them, some things that I found helpful, and then also some best practices, as I go through. So let me escape out of this one, close out. And here we go. So Excel, let me drag this one over. The bane of a lot of people's existence, because a lot of times, and I say that because, not because Excel's bad, I think it just gets, misused a lot. So you have, and I think the common scenario is a lot of people stick to the spreadsheet, right? So they'll have, a column here, some text column, some number, and I'm just being arbitrary, right? And they'll say, star, and then I'll put shapes here, circle, right? So they have all these things, and then 1, so different data types or whatever. And then you see these like, oh, I need to write a formula, and then if this equals, and it becomes this issue where you have these formulas that become, like sometimes I've seen Excel formulas that wouldn't fit in a tweet, and that's when you're probably in trouble. Like if it's that long that it won't fit in a tweet. But they tend to, over time, if they're not maintained, if you're not maintaining references, if you're not using relative references, if you're not doing a lot of that stuff, they can break, right? If you don't protect your sheet. So a lot of people, in terms of data prep, they don't really do They still do, but the hardcore data prep, no one's doing it really like in an Excel spreadsheet like this. However, there's something about Excel that I think a lot of folks don't know about, and I've kind of seen this on social media a lot, but there's Power Query. So Power Query, Excel can only take about 1 million rows of data, give or take, right? An Excel spreadsheet can take 1 million rows and then there's 16,000 columns. That's the box that you're in. If you have anything more than that, good luck, buddy, you're on your own. However, starting in around like the 2010 timeframe, I think might have been a little bit earlier than that, you decided to see add-ins to Excel, like Power Pivot, Power Query, stuff like that. Well, those two mainly. And it started to kind of break that in terms of not having to use a worksheet to query data. So, and to model data for Power Pivot. So I'm going to show you some things in Power Query and kind of go from there. So to get to Power Query, and I have some extra tabs because I have some other add-ins in Excel, but Power Query, if you haven't seen it before, you go to data, the data tab, go to get data, and you go, and I'm going to go to the SQL database, right? So I have a local host SQL server. So I'm going to go local host, hit OK. And I got databases, it came right up, right? So let me see, I'm going to do, let me do the Coast Guard one. So I have, a bunch of tables in there, and I'm going to get, let me see. Let me select multiple tables just for the heck of it. I'm going to do VCAS location, which is, these are vessel casualties. And this is a historical data set from the Coast Guard from like, I think the dates start from like 1973 to like, I want to say like 2001 or 2000, something like that. So I'll do vessel, do stats, and let me do personnel casualties, right? So I'll take 3 tables, go ahead and hit transform. And that popped up, obviously, always on the other screen because I'm presenting, of course. And then all of a sudden I get this, and then you're like, what the heck is this if you've never seen it before? For the uninitiated, oh, let me do that. So this is what Power Query looks like in the back end. Now, I'm getting 3 tables here, and I get a ribbon. So for Power Query, it can connect to databases and it can do a lot of cool stuff. So if you're forced to do, you just need something like a one-off or something like that, or if you need to kind of do some, writing drunk, as I said, or Hemingway, then you can actually do a lot of it with Excel. Some cool features about Power Query. You have the home tab where you can kind of do some joins. They're called merges here. And then you have appends. You could do appends. You could do a lot of like, really like introductory cleaning stuff. Like I only want to keep the top 5 rows, or I want to remove all the duplicates or remove any errors that are found, stuff like that. So on this first tab, on the home tab, transform is, I want to change a value in a column for the most part, right? So you have, I can split columns, I can reformat things, I can extract data, right? And I could do all sorts of statistics if I hit a number column. So if I do this, and it's contextual. So I can, as I select a number column, it gives, these things light up and I can use them, right? So I could do some things there. And there's a lot of like little features here where you can just use the UI to do some of these things. You don't necessarily have to go in here and edit the code for Power Query, which is called M, just M. So out of the box, you have, you probably have Excel, you have some way to kind of prep with this tab. Add column, really cool because I'll show one of the very, very cool features, but you can add a column and you can write your own custom functions. So if you want to do like a custom if then statement or anything like that and add a column to the right, then you can go ahead and do that. Like, let's say if this has BAL in it, then I want to call it Baltimore or something like that. You can kind of do that with this add a custom column. One of the cool features on the add column is column from examples. So let me go ahead and like that one example that I just gave, I'll go to column from examples from selection. And column from examples is a way where you can say, I'm just going to leave it like this. I'll just leave it column one. I don't even know what to title it, but let's say I wanted to get BAL out of there, right? And for the sake of demonstration purposes, I really, I don't know how to really do that from either M code or what to click over here. Now I can just type in BAL and start, well, actually that one's A and C. Do A, and then all of a sudden it starts to fill in because it's guessing based on what I did on the first one. It's kind of filling in all the rest of the values, right? So, and as I scroll down, it seems pretty consistent, like it's getting it correct. This is one that you definitely want to like trust but validate, because depending on how fancy the how complex, I should say, the the cleaning is on what you're trying to do, like it's not gonna get it 100% correct in every single circumstance. But I think in a lot of circumstances, it does do a pretty good job. It's also like good for training purposes because you can just hit OK. And if you didn't know how to do that, well, it created a step here, right? So, and then you could see like, oh, I just wanted to get the text between these delimiters, and this is how it did it. So on the back end, it ends up being pretty handy in terms of, trying to learn Power Query. Some cool things about Power Query. There's a lot of stuff here in terms of best practices. Some best practices with Power Query is if you, and I mean, this is really across the board with a lot of these things. For right off the bat, only pull the data that you need, right? If you're pulling 15 million rows of data, Power Query and Excel, believe it or not, will process it. But if you're doing some complicated things, depending on whether query folding is in place, then it's really going to just take a long time and it's just going to not work well. So some things that you can do is if you already know that you need to filter the data, filter it first. If you want to shrink that data down as much as you can, if you know you're going to filter, don't save it to the end, because what ends up happening is that data gets pulled in for every single step in the cache, right? Also, choosing columns. If you don't need all 20 columns, just go ahead and choose the ones you want right off the bat. So filter and choose right off the bat. So let's say I didn't want the body of water because I don't care, right? Go ahead, just knock that out. Now, so one thing I've mentioned a couple times is query folding. So query folding is the concept of Power Query will, if you use functions that fold back, it will actually generate for the steps valid SQL that can go back into the table, right? So it kind of tells you how it built the code, the SQL code. So to reiterate, what folding does, if you get the query to fold, is it takes what you did here on this right-hand side, all your applied steps, and as long as folding is in place, Power Query will translate that into a SQL query. And what ends up happening is Power Query sends that to the server, lets the server process it, and then returns back what you asked for. instead of your local computer mishmashing this up and then sending calls back and forth, which that's what's makes it slow a lot of the time. It's a really cool feature of Power Query. And I mean, there's a lot of training out there on it. A lot of videos on YouTube about it. I think, so if anybody has any questions about, wanting to know more about query folding, then, just put it in the chat. I'll try to reach out. But some things to, if you wanted to join data or something like that, I'll just do a quick little demo here. So let's say I wanted to take this M case, which is a unique identifier, and I want to, like, for the Excel folks that may not know, like if I want to do like a VLOOKUP and look up another column in this other table, I could just come here, highlight this, go here, merge, and I'll do it as a new table. And then I'm going to merge PCAS with VCAS stats. And I go here, do a left outer, hit OK. And then all of a sudden I can pull in whatever columns I want from that other table because I got a match, right? So that's a quick join, very simple. And, some of the other things that I think would be helpful to know up front, some things for usability stake, is I would say don't necessarily try to jump into M right off the bat and try to write like M code, because there's some folks that'll come into the advanced editor and they'll just try to, like, I'm just going to figure out M, I'm not going to use the UI. What a lot of the folks say, and I think it's probably about right, is, and I'm not sure what these numbers are, but I've heard from the, folks say that about 70% of what you want to do is probably from the point and click. And then if you want to do something very complex, at that point, you could probably do use the UI up here and then divert to just editing the M a little bit, just like tweaking it a little bit, and that'll probably get you a lot of what you need to do. All right, so I mean, Power Query is a very there's a lot of stuff on this. It's kind of hard to cover in a short demonstration like this, but it is something that's available. It can be quite efficient, if you go into a SQL database, and you can do some cool things with it. It's just, there is a little bit of a learning curve just to make sure that you understand the concept of folding. Really, that's a really big feature of this. All right, so when I'm done with my query, as long as it's not over 1 million rows, as long as I got some summaries, I can load it to a sheet, or I can go ahead and close and load. Or actually, let me see. I don't want to close and load. But what I wanted to do was, if you just close instead of closing and loading, you can just add this to the data model and not necessarily put it in a sheet. So if it's more than that 1 million rows of data and change, it'll still be in that spreadsheet in the data model, but it won't be loaded into the sheet and therefore create an error in Excel. So yeah, again, a lot of stuff that you can do. There's a lot of training out there on Power Query. It's something that can be done in Excel if that's all you have. All right, so let's move on to the next one. So this is Tableau Prep. So Tableau Prep, like I said, comes with a creator license, kind of works along. It's more of a visual, like, workflow process, right? And it's very clean, it's very nice to look at. Personally, I like, obviously the way it's designed. I think it's really, done on that, well done on that front. but you know, you can connect the data. So here I connected to that same database, and you can, again, if you don't need the column, if you don't need, if you want to be able to filter, you want to do that up front, right? Don't pull in more data than what you need, because otherwise it could really bog down any sort of workflows in any of these things. So here, if I was like, actually that's a different database, but whatever. I can go ahead and, you know, uncheck any columns that I don't need. And then what I actually did here on this one, this is a database of, it's newspaper articles and the political science. I think it was out of Harvard. Either way, it doesn't really matter. But it's called IQs, and basically they tagged newspaper articles based on political conflict. And it goes back to, like, I think 1995. So here, you know, keeping that in mind, I filtered out, you know, I only wanted this decade. So from 9/11 to 9/11 2001 to 9/11 2011. And then I only wanted 2 target countries of Iraq and Afghanistan. So instead of like pulling from all over the world, I only wanted this specific time period for these specific countries. So again, filter up front. And then I pulled in also a spreadsheet, and this is from the Defense Casualty Analysis website. It's the Operation Enduring Freedom, Names of the Fallen. So just kind of cursory, like looking at this, I was like, I wonder if this would match up with IQs, so I could see, you know, names of the fallen that, you know, that died while on duty, and match it up with this data set to see if I can get any matches for a newspaper article that happened that day. So came here, and when you add steps here, you kind of just filter. Yeah, well, not filter. You kind of just hover next to the data set, hit plus, then you hit a clean step. So it gave me this. So this clean step, what I really like about Tableau Prep is this whole like visual setup here. Some things that I didn't know at first, that when I saw people do it, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known that. So like if you hit control and then you scroll down and you say, like, let's say I want to go the source country now. I want source, for whatever reason, Azerbaijan and Albania. If I control and left click and then hit keep only, I mean, I don't think I'm going to get any hits, but oh yeah, it did. It'll filter it down and do really quickly. So you can really start to filter really fast in Tableau Prep. And then you could always undo with this applied your changes pane over here. So if I'm like, no, I don't want to do that, then I can just come back here. On this one, I went to the Cameo code, and you could also see what you did by, which is really a nice feature too. You can really just click it and see what you filtered on. But I filtered on specific Cameo codes that indicated that there was an attack. So, but some other things here, some other cool features that kind of helps you along if you're learning. Oops, sorry. Is recommendations. So I think, you know, this is like another one of those trust but verify situations. It can be helpful, especially like change data role to country region. That's definitely helpful. A lot of times I forget to do this when I'm in Tableau Prep. So that can be definitely helpful. But there's also some things where it's like, you know, you got a lot of null values, or this column's completely null. Like, what are we doing? So you can get some pretty good recommendations. It's one of those things that you want to look at, but, you know, really like determine on your own, like whether or not you want to do that. So, you know, so I pulled this in and then I joined it. So a join, the cool thing about Tableau Prep 2 is when you want to do a join or union, you just drag the data sources to the step where you want to do that. And let's say I want to join. So that's what I did on this one. And I said, I want the event date to equal the data depth from the OEF names of the fallen. Another really cool data quality thing right off the bat on the join step. So it tells me which ones didn't match, right? Which dates didn't match. And it gives me a whole laundry list. And then it tells me the results all on the side. So, and then I could really tell me, okay, what's on the left, what's on the right. So your antes, you know, what came through on IQs, but wasn't in OEF and vice versa. So, really helpful in terms when you're trying to validate the accuracy of a join, whether it worked or not, or whether it's even helpful. And then here, I did that join on the death, and I did get some hits. So, you know, I got some articles, and you know, then what I can do from here is, if I right click on that step, I can, you know, I can just go to preview in Tableau desktop. So if you kind of want to start to say, you know, start to visualize whether this works for you, it's very seamless in terms of, okay, I think this looks right for what I want to do. Let me preview it in Tableau desktop to see what's going on. So it's kind of like integrated that way. All right. Now let's go to Alteryx. Now Alteryx. So Alteryx works very well with Tableau. Yeah, so Alteryx definitely, and the same is true with Tableau, same is true obviously with Excel, because you can do, I mean, if you're going to write VBA, you can do a lot of things with Excel too. But it's set up a lot like Tableau in terms of it's a visual workflow, right? Steps to steps to steps. Now you could see that, you know, I was kind of doing some things here, but I pulled in the Coast Guard data set again from that table. I pulled in another table, and I pulled in a shape map. What I used Alteryx a lot is if you're in the spatial sphere of analytics and you have to do a lot of mapping, there is just a lot of tools here where you can do a lot of mapping stuff, a lot of geo. I mean, I think spatial match was something, and I think I did that here, where you can really do, you know, is this event in this location? You know, if you want to find this point, is this within this location? Like that'll do that. And then also you can do buffers, all sorts of things. So is there what's within a 1 mile radius of this city, or what's within a 5 mile radius of this city? And you can kind of build that out. Alteryx is, you know, all the things are up here, all the tools that they have. So you basically start out with your input, and on input data, it really does have a lot of connectors. Same with Tableau prep in terms of connectors. But like for the folks that do SQL work, one thing that I thought was pretty cool is, you know, let's say I want to go to the database. Like, you know, you can do a visual query editor for SQL databases, right? So I can drag this over here, and I can drag this, and then I could start like picking the columns that I want, and then writing joins, and then, you know, this matches to that, and do it like that. But then I can come here and see like the SQL and validate it as well. Or I can just write the SQL here myself and test it, right? So for folks that are in like your gravy SQL, that's, you know, that's what you're accustomed to. You know, you can write SQL here. You know, and that's like for use cases where you might not be able to write a view at the source, right? But so that's one of those features where it's like, it's not preventing you from doing what you're comfortable with. Like there's no cliff. You can jump in and write SQL if you want. So, you know, I did some inputs on, you know, that SQL database, pulled in the tables. This is a join step, and I joined on, the case number. But but the cool thing about Alteryx is you can go off, as you could see, I went off on several different paths, right? And depending on what you're trying to do, it might make sense. So you might want to first join and then see how that plays out with something else, right? So here I joined and I just wanted to kind of look at some things, but I'm going to run this workflow, and first things first, I'm going to show you a trick that I wish I would have known right off the bat is especially when you're playing with a lot of data, cache and run your workflow. What that does is that takes a local copy of your data, and it makes a local copy of your data just for the purposes of the workflow. And Alteryx, when I start caching these, it just becomes incrementally faster. So it went from 8 seconds to 0.9 seconds. And then this is just a shape file, but it probably won't make much difference. But there's 2 tables from a database, and there's a good amount of records in there. But by caching the workflow, it took it from, it's not slow at 9 seconds, but to 9 seconds, whatever it was. So I ran the workflow. This step is just, making points out of lat and longs. I get a map out of it. And I can kind of see where that is real quick. On this side, I've taken the shape file. I made a buffer of 10 miles. So what I did was I took the state of Florida and I said, give me 10 miles around the whole state of Florida, right? I probably did it. I think I did a generalized, but maybe I didn't. Well, either way, I got a buffer on it. Then I ran it through intersections. So I was looking for, with that buffer around Florida, what events were within that circle, right? So going through that, I started to get hits, right? And it really filtered out my universe and started to say, okay, well, these are all the Florida cases that were in the database. So, and I'm getting vessel casualties, and I merged it with personnel casualties. So I'm getting all the casualties, whether it was a ship or, an individual. And then here, I just filtered out there was some duplication there, put a unique step on there. Then all of a sudden, that's what gave me the end. But the cool thing about Alteryx is that you can really experiment with what you're trying to do. And if you don't know how to use a tool, you could just search for it, and this will go to their online community. So interpolation was something that I was like trying to figure out. You can ask the community a question straight from here, or if there's a tool that you don't know how to use, so let's say imputation, I can hit open an example, and it'll give me an example workflow that I can run right here. And it basically has its own documentation built in. So I can kind of see like what this stuff looks like what is the output, what happens when I do this, right? So it's a great way. It's almost like self-contained training within the tool itself, and they do have their own training as well. All right. So some other just real quick Alteryx tips. These binoculars, so these are like kind of like a quick way it's the browse tool. It's a quick way to look at your data, and as you're experimenting, you're going to use it a lot. However, when you start to get really complex workflows, you kind of want to go back and delete them all, not all of them, or just the few that you might need to make sure, because otherwise putting too many browse tools can slow down your workflow. It is handy because like browse tools, not only for mapping, but if I go, you can get a profile of your data as well if it's not spatial. So you'll start to see like what's your breakdown and values, and how many nulls do you have, how many distincts. So it's helpful in that sense as well. All right, I'll pause for any questions that folks may have. All right. All right, is there anything that anyone else has any questions about that they want to see with any of these tools before we kind of move on? Does it show the steps that you applied? Yes. So like basically each of these tools, so you can click into each of these tools and see what the result was for each tool. So you can kind of go in and say, okay, this is what this resulted in. This is what this resulted in, and all that stuff. So you can definitely see along the way what happened. It's very simple to kind of do that in Alteryx. For Tableau prep, same way. The steps that you applied, you would just come here and you could see all the changes over here. And then for Power Query, it's all these steps right there. Data files, it all so yeah, so for data sources, I mean, it depends on the topic. For training, I think like in Tableau prep, it has their I think you can just do the Superstore data set. I think you should be able to. Let me see. I think you can use Superstore in here, but I just haven't used it in a while. For Tableau, it definitely has all these examples in here as well. In terms of like, where do I find my data? It really depends on the project and what story you want to tell. I mean, personally, like I find a lot of my data on, DoD websites, VA websites. NARA is huge. It has just a lot of historical data. But for other projects, I might go to USA Spending or something like that. Oh, output. That's a great question. Output on Alteryx. Alteryx has just a bunch of outputs that you can do. So let's say I wanted to output all the unique values here. So let me go ahead to this step. I could write to a file or a database. So basically, almost as much as you can input, you can output with Alteryx, I would say. So it can go to a database if you want, or it can go to a flat file, or you can create your own custom shape file, which I've found really handy over the years. I mean, I've done reports, PDFs, where it's just a flat file report where it just had like, what you needed to know. You can make a web page. It's Google Earth Map. It supports a lot. All right. All right. So with that, let's stop sharing my screen for a moment. We do have a fellow Marine here that served with me. Well, I served with him. He retired. Jay Garcia. He actually works for Alteryx. I'll turn it over to Jay. He's going to talk about the SparkEd program, and just want to again thank you, Jay, for taking time out of your day to help us kind of talk about Alteryx and how it supports veterans.
Thank you, Christopher. Team, I mean, this is fantastic. I think having groups where this community can benefit from sharing resources. I mean, please continue and reach back and help out our fellow veterans. As Christopher mentioned, I am a retiree. I did 20 years in the United States Marine Corps, and for me, I take it a little bit personal to always provide resources and help out the military veteran community. And I say that because it's not just us veterans, but we also have to help our military spouses. You know, for as many years as we served, we had a job. You know, we PCS, we PCA, we had a paycheck. Oftentimes the military spouse has to drop what they're doing and follow us to wherever we get stationed at, right? So please, if you can, share some of these resources with the military spouse as well. But I joined Alteryx 6 months ago after coming from the cybersecurity side of things, where I led similar programs to what I'm doing now. Security Academy program, military and veterans initiatives. I'm heavily involved with the nonprofit sector as well. I just returned from San Diego. I live in North County, San Diego, but I just got back from downtown where I was doing a presentation, a brief to members of Onward to Opportunity. So these are our fellow brothers and sisters that are leaving the military, that are taking advantage of O2O, which provides free cybersecurity certs and data analytics certs and PHR and PMP certifications, right, for project management. So I share that because I also want everybody in this community here to take a look at the other resources that are available. They might not apply to you, but maybe Timothy here that I see on the screen, or Ryan, maybe your significant other is looking for that cyber cert, PMP certification or PHR certification to get a pay raise, right? So Onward Opportunity through Syracuse University's IVMF, Institute for Veteran and Military Families, they provide free training and certifications for the vet, transitioning service members, and military spouses. So enough on that, but I kind of put it on the chat here because I want to be brief and give you as much time back. I joined Alteryx because they have the Spark Education Program. They provide free licenses to higher ed. So right now we partner with about 850 higher ed institutions, some high schools, some community colleges, and we provide free access to our technology. So it's free licenses where a professional, you will have to pay about $5,000 to purchase a year license from Alteryx, a designer license. Through Spark, we provide those for free to higher ed institutions. So for you, if you want to get upskill on Alteryx with your .edu email address, you can go to our Spark website and be able to download a free license. If you are actively pursuing, education, you have a .edu email address, and please, these licenses are for educational purposes only. So as long as you're in school, you have an active .edu email address, get a year license for free. If you're not, then we offer an independent learner. We call it career changer license. That license is for 90 days only. Enough time for you to go over the material, the interactive lessons, the videos, the recordings, and take advantage of all those resources under community so that you can obtain your Alteryx certification. For me, I want to make sure that every person, but in this case, every veteran, especially if you're looking into data analytics, you're aware of, trained, and maybe certify if you can, from Alteryx, from Tableau, from Power BI, from UiPath, right? Like the biggest players in the game, because I think that those certifications, that training, that knowledge, that experience can help you get promoted, can help you get pay raises, and can definitely open up new opportunities. So again, Christopher, thank you for the time. Please reach out on LinkedIn. I put the links on the chat. If there's anything that I can do to help you out, whether it's in data analytics industry or anywhere in tech, cybersecurity. I mean, I ran a successful veterans program at Fortinet, one of the leading cyber vendors in the space. Please let me know if I can help you in any way, shape, or form. And thank you, Christopher. And I'm here, happy to help out.
Thank you. That was incredible. Really appreciate you taking the time. And it's good to see you. All right. So we posted a link in the chat for SparkEd. I think Jay posted some things in there as well. So, if you please take advantage of these things. There's a lot out there, like Jay said. So this is definitely something that Alteryx is, as Jay said, one of the big players, and it can help. So I'll go ahead and share my screen again. Let me see. And we're going to go over the website real quick. So Ethan spent a lot of his personal time, obviously, going over the website. Tim, if you want to drop the link in the chat, I'll just go over it real quick. I mean, I think he just did a really phenomenal job in terms of putting this together. So it's visforvets.com. And, you know, you get to our main page. It kind of tells some of the things that we're doing, very brief intro. You know, you'll have the most recent event on our first page because, you know, all of our events go on YouTube. And then we're starting to writing a blog. So Ethan has his vet to viz story posted. We'll also try to pepper in some, you know, tips and tricks and, you know, some other things that might be helpful along your journey. So be, you know, definitely check back in. We have an about us page as well, where we kind of just really quick, you know, outline our stories and who we are. And then we also have like a kind of like a showcase of data sets that we've used for Viz for Vets challenges. So the Project Echelon one, where we helped a nonprofit that's helping veterans get into cycling. The 107 Foundation challenge that we had with 107, looking at a nurse survey. And then also Tuskegee Airmen Challenge that we partnered with Data Plus Diversity, Tableau, it's a community project, right, Tim? Yep. So, and if you hit any of these buttons, actually, we have a couple more, sorry. Homeless veterans, Ethan actually won visit of the day for this one. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's just really, really has just a lot of, I think it very cleanly tells a story in terms of how 50 states are doing to serve homeless veterans. And then Vet Pop, which I'm going to go over in a minute, is our next challenge for Veterans Day. But either one of these, you just hit the big red button and it takes you right to the GitHub where you can get to the data set itself. Or if you want to read more, you can go to the wiki and you can kind of see, you know, what I think I tried to put, you know, a really quick snapshot of what each visual looked like, and then, you know, some links as well. So great job, Ethan. Again, you know, we're trying to put all this stuff into one spot, one-stop shop for everyone. And, you know, I just think he did a great job in terms of putting all this together. All right. So with that, I'm going to introduce our next challenge. So let me see if I can put this in the chat. So we'll be doing a Veterans Day challenge. And if you're not familiar with our challenges, basically, we give you a data set and, you know, a time frame, and basically the idea is try to tell a story that you find in the data with using Tableau. Post a Tableau public, you know, and then when you post it, put a message on social media with the hashtags, and that's generally the setup. For this one, we looked at, we thought it was a kind of like, you know, because not a whole lot of time until Veterans Day. We kind of wanted to do something that tells a story about, you know, veterans as a whole, right? So we looked at VetPop, which if you're unfamiliar with VetPop, it's a veteran population model that the VA does. So it's like a projection where the National Center for Veterans Analysis and Statistics at the Department of Veterans Affairs tries to provide demographic information for veterans nationwide. So they updated it in 2020. And if you want to learn more about it, I put a link to the PDF where it explains it in great detail. So we want to tell a story about veterans using the veterans population model. I'll just kind of go over the data very briefly. I put a lot of data here, not to overwhelm anyone at all, but just to give you options in terms of what you want to kind of visualize, right? The intent is not to, yes, you must visualize all 11 tabs of the spreadsheet, right? That's not the intent, right? The intent is pick out something that you think is interesting and that would tell a good story about the veteran and military spouse community. So there's a lot of information here. Like I said, it's broken down, a lot of times by state level. Sometimes this one's pretty interesting. It's by VISN. So integrated service network, that's a VHA term, but it's basically like a network of hospitals. So in this county, all sorts of stuff in here. So you really have your choice as to what you want to present in Tableau. Put it on Tableau Public. We're using this hashtag, which is hashtag VetPop 2020 challenge. I know it's a little long, but just, copy and paste, put it in there. If you put that into the comments in Tableau Public or the whatever that field is when you publish, then we're able to see it really quickly and be able to kind of message out that we received submission. So just ask that you kind of put that in there. And if you post to Twitter and LinkedIn, just use the same hashtag. That way, again, we can kind of see that you posted, and we can kind of push it up and hopefully, make the case for who knows, a visit of the day. So that's basically the challenge in and of itself, and a really short rundown of it. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us or me directly. There's, like I said, lots of data in there. Just, whatever you're comfortable with or whatever you want to present on, go ahead, put it in Tableau and tell the veteran story. All right. And just going to check the agenda real quick. Closing remarks. All right. So I guess I'll close. So yeah, we went over a lot of stuff. Went over 3 different ways to kind of go over to prep your data for visualizations. There's a lot to learn there, so it's really hard to like hit all the marks in terms of best practices and what you can do. But I think the main thing is don't be intimidated like I was. Just get in there, make mistakes with any of these things. If you're not writing back to the source, like you're not breaking anything. So feel free to invent. Really want to thank Jay for taking time out of his day to kind of not only tell us about the Alteryx Spark Ed program, but tell him a little bit about his background, especially, after the service. I mean, he's doing a lot of great things for veterans and spouses and, the military community as a whole. Again, thanks to Ethan for putting together that website. I know he's kind of spent a lot of late nights on weekends kind of putting that together, trying to set that up. But we'll open the floor to any questions or any networking. But if you're done listening to me talk, then you're free to leave as well. Does any of the leads want to have anything else to say before we close?
Yeah, hey, it's Tim. Thanks, Chris, for the presentation and showing the webpage and everything. It's something we're really excited about. Tableau does have a community projects website that we're trying to get added to. So hopefully that will spread the word as well. I did want to spread the word about our next Tableau TUG meeting, which is next month, November 17th at 6:30. We're gonna have 2 speakers, and it's going to be Zach Bowders and David Bresler, and they're going to talk about well, it's something I've actually wondering about since, you know, have always been things that I've been interested in, and I wanted to create a dashboard on, and I didn't know how to find the data and go through all the steps. And Zach and Dave are going to actually go through how they think of something to visualize, and then they find the data and clean it, and come up with a dashboard. So that's going to be next month's meeting. And here I'm going to put the link in the chat. So if you want to just click on that and RSVP right now, that would be great. So yeah, I'm excited for that one. And then also, yeah, please participate in the Veterans Day Challenge. And like Chris said, there's a possibility, there's no promises that it'll be considered for a visit a day. So I think we're gonna be able to pull some strings to get that done. So if you want that for your portfolio, and we'll blast out messages about that too on LinkedIn and Twitter and things like that. So, but that's all I have to say.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead. We'll hang out here for a little bit, but the floor is open if you want to talk. I think we're billed to 7:30, or you know, if you want to take off, it's up to you. Man, the screen's so bright. Oh wait, we still recording? Stop recording.
We are recording. Yeah, you can stop recording now.